The Newman City Council Redevelopment Agency special meeting July 20 to order. Please stand for the pledge. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Please remain standing and bow your heads. Dear God, thank you for bringing us here tonight. We ask that you watch over the great city of Newman. Give this council the wisdom to make the right decisions for this great city. And this we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis?
Present.
Candia?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martina?
Present.
Mayor King?
Present. Go to item 5, declarations of conflicts of interest. Seeing none, we'll move to item 6, ceremonial matters. I don't believe we have any of those either. We'll go to item 7, items from the public, non-agenda items. Any member of the public wish to address the council? We don't have any public. Go to number 8, consent calendar. Excuse my hold. Waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions except by title. Approval of the warrants. Approval of the minutes of the June 22nd, 2010 regular meeting and the July 6, 2010 special meeting.
Make a motion we approve the consent calendar as is.
I second that motion.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9 is public hearings, and we don't have a public hearing this evening. We'll move to item 10, which is regular business. A is adopt resolution number 2010. Next to number, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the city of Turlock, designating the city of Newman as a subrecipient of home funds fiscal year 2010-2011.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you is the fiscal year 2010-2011 home subrecipient agreement with the city of Turlock. In order to receive our annual home allocation, we must enter into a subrecipient agreement with the city of Turlock, who is the lead agency of the home consortia. The city is set to receive an allocation of $161,831.91 upon approval of said agreement. Staff recommends the council adopt resolution 2010 next to number, authorizing the city manager to execute a subrecipient agreement with the city of Turlock. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Stephanie? Seeing no questions, council direction.
I make a motion we adopt resolution number 210, next number, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the city of Turlock, designating the city of Newman as a subrecipient of home funds fiscal year 2010 through 2011.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is report on the use receivership to abate properties.
Mayor, tonight we have visiting counsel Douglas White is going to do this presentation for us right now.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you real quickly about health and safety receiverships and the ability of the city to kind of abate some problems that it may be having with property owners who have violated building codes or other city ordinances kind of repeatedly and kind of put the public at danger by their activities. Just real quickly, I'll go through the process that one would follow if you wanted to begin a health and safety receivership. First of all, the city would go out, they would do an inspection of the property. They would determine if there's any kind of building code violations of city ordinances, so on. They would give the property owner and any tenants who are on the property notice of the need to repair or abate the problem and identify what the problem actually is. If a property owner, if the problem is substantial and it endangers property owners or tenants, then they can, the city's next step would be to file a notice with the court regarding the property owner's failure to comply and address these issues that the city has brought to its attention. And if there's still no action, the city can file an action with the court and ask the court to appoint a receiver who would then be in charge of rehabilitating the property and kind of taking any rents or profits from the property and allocating that to reimburse the city for its cost of bringing the property up to par, reimbursing it for any legal fees associated with the action, and also with any cost associated with the management and payment of the receivers themselves. that process goes on until the city has been fully satisfied and all debts have been repaid. At that point in time, the court goes and discharges the receiver, and the property owner resumes control of their property again. The important thing to note is during this process is although the city has the right to place liens on property for its investment to kind of bring it up to par, for any, again, violations of building code ordinances, providing some protection if, for instance, you were in an area that had prostitution issues. It cannot foreclose on the property. So we can't get into a situation where you essentially have the city coming in and using it as an exercise of eminent domain. It really doesn't have that power. What it does is it has the right to go in, fix the property, bring it up to the standard, and maintain control of the property until the city has been repaid and the citizens have gotten back the money that they invested to bring it up to par. There are a host of different financial methods that you can use to finance these. You might be able to use redevelopment funds, and it really is on a case-by-case basis until such time as the city has set up a specific fund for this purpose. I think what the city attorney has asked for tonight is the ability to kind of take this to the next level, and engage and discuss with outside counsel as to the possibility to provide this service to the city on an as needed, on request type demand. That would result in no cost to the city. So with that, I'll kind of just halt and just answer any questions that any council members may or may have.
I just had one. Does this apply only to real property, or does it apply to personal property also?
To my knowledge, my recollection of the statute, it only applies to real property. So, for instance, if there was equipment that was in the property, whether or not it could be used. Yeah. What you can do is what happens is when the city goes in and spends, let's say it takes $10,000 to bring up a property up to snuff. Once the city takes that action, you are going to put a lien against that property. And that lien has the force and effect of what's called a judgment lien. And what that does is if somebody has personal assets, so for instance, if the property is not held in an LLC and that's the only asset in it, then it does give us the ability to go after that property owner's individual assets to get a quicker repayment to the city. So there are ways in which personal property could become involved to satisfy, for instance, the judgment lien and repay the city. But I don't know, for instance, if the receiver took over the property, whether or not they could, they would have control over the equipment and so on, be able to rent it out.
Okay.
I don't believe they can, but.
Okay.
Doug, did I hear you say that after the property has been basically rehabilitated and brought back up to snuff, it's returned to the owner, the original owner? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, the management, the owner always owns the property during this time frame. Again, you cannot use this as kind of an eminent domain vehicle in which you're depriving somebody of their land. What you are doing is saying you aren't doing what you're supposed to do. The building's being operated as in danger and in violation of law. We're going to come in and the court's going to appoint a receiver to take over management, and the city's going to pay through different funds. It can be like redevelopment funds, not general funds necessarily, to bring the property up to snuff or to correct the violations. And until such time as the city has been repaid, the receiver would have day-to-day control over the property, the discretion to rent it out, to enter into arrangements with its tenants, so on. And once the city has been fully satisfied, the owner then can exert control, and the receiver is terminated by the court.
Would it not be, I don't know how likely or the probability, what's to keep the property from falling back into blight conditions again after all this time and money and effort has been spent to bring it up to snuff,
Right.
and eventually it's turned back over to the owner? If it got into that, I guess my concern, and maybe there is no reason to be, but if it got into this situation now, what's going to keep it from getting back in that situation a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road again, and we're right back doing the same thing?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything within the statute that allows us to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I think what we're trying to use is we're using the stick rather than the carrot, and we're saying that if you in fact don't abide by these these notices of things that you have to correct, then you're going to be responsible for the attorney fees. You're going to be responsible for the management fees and fees associated with the receiver. You're going to pay back the city any fines that you may owe. And you're going to lose control of your property. You're not going to be able to transfer it or sell it to somebody during the time it's in receivership. So the thought being that this is enough of a stick to disincentivize property owners who have let their property go to blight from letting that, to prevent that from happening again. But if it doesn't, then we're right back to where we're at.
And I guess my next question would be is, how do you get blood out of a turnip? If they can't afford to take, for whatever the reason may be, loss of employment or whatever, if they can't maintain their property under the current conditions and their financial status, what good does it do us to go after them if they don't have anything?
Right. I think this is why you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. For instance, if you don't have anything and it's owned by there's no equity in the property, it's owned by an LLC, so that's the only asset that entity owns, and you've had repeated problems with it, it may be a situation where, despite the fact that it's a blight issue, you may have to look at other methods in which to correct that action. But in other situations where maybe an individual owns it and has lots of assets and has just not been responsive to the city, I think it's a way to, get their attention and hopefully focus it so that it won't happen again. But having said that, the city has the ability to go in and make some pretty aggressive decisions on behalf of the property owner, even to the extent of redeveloping the property or repositioning it to put it in a situation where it would be attractive to new tenants and to get rental income coming in. Again, it's part of the council's decision from a business standpoint from the part of the city to figure out how much it wants to invest in each particular situation and whether it makes sense. So really, as much as what this is it gives us some ammunition, and it really is a case-by-case basis as to where city resources are best utilized.
Question. A lot of homes we know in this area are controlled by a financial institution.
Mm-hmm.
Would it apply to them also?
It could, yes.
Okay, that's important because a lot of homes out there that do fall into that problem
Yeah.
are owned by financial institutions.
So, for instance, you had a financial institution who just was really killing a neighborhood by maybe they own 2 or 3 homes, and we've seen that where they're killing streets. The city might decide that it would be in its best interest, if it's not owner occupied at the time, there's somebody still living in it, to go in, take over those properties, fix them up a little bit, so that they're presentable, and get them rented out, collect the rents from those properties until such time as the city has been repaid, and then allow the financial institution to take things back over. So it's just, again, that would be a good example of how you might use it.
Thank you.
Michael, do we have any other known cities that are using this?
Doug, are you aware of any other cities that?
It's used more, we found, it's been
Larger cities?
mostly in large metropolitan areas and largely more affluent cities who have lots of resources, and mostly in Southern California.
Again, I think when Mr. White is showing us, this is one option, one tool that we could utilize for these particular types of situations. So, as your staff will continue to look at it, I know there's some redevelopment methods we might be able to also look into for you and come back and repeat. But I think we just, at this time, this was an issue that Councilmember Davis is very concerned about, and she asked us to start bringing this information to you. And this is the first of multiple that we hope to be bringing to you as tools that you can use as a council to make sure that your commercial, your industrial, and even your residential areas are living up to the standards that you've set as a council, and what type of community that we want to have in terms of a livable community and an aesthetically pleasing community. So, the key component here is public health and safety is a key component for this. Yes.
Right. Is there any other questions, Mr. White or the city manager? Okay, thank you. Then, do I take it the council would like staff to continue to look into other options and continue to bring information to council?
Yes.
I do have one question. Any money the city puts out will come before any profit to the seller or the owner at some point, won't it? Including the lender. If the lender owes, if more is owed on than it's worth, we would be paid first. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like taxes?
Yep. Yep. The city would get their money first, and it would be part of the court order and the management allocated by the receivership.
Good.
So it sounds like should the city move forward with a property, it goes to a judge. The judge then appoints a receiver, and he works out the details of what the management cost is going to be and what the cost to the city in terms of rent, collections, and that is going to go back to the city. And it'll set up a program by which the city will be reimbursed, as well as the receiver will be paid for their management time and duties. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it would be it's very analogous to like a bankruptcy, where there's a certain pot of money that's coming in or a revenue stream that's been created, and the court and the receiver would decide, this much is each month is going to go to the receiver, this much is going to go to payment of attorney fees, this much is going to be going to repayment of the any fines that the city levied, and this much would be going to the city in terms of its capital investment to bring the property back up to the city standards. And this much may go to lenders in terms of outstanding loan repayments or so on. So you might not get 100% of whatever revenue is generated. It would really be allocated. So just so we're clear, it would be allocated by the court. But it's not like, for instance, if a property, let's say it was a loan payment that was $1,000 a month, and you were only able to collect $1,000 a month. It's not like the city wouldn't be getting part of that $1,000 to be able to be compensated for its investments.
But at some point, the city would get every dollar they had put in back. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no way that the city cannot get repaid. It's really a question of how long does it take to get fully compensated. And obviously, the larger the investment, the more likely it is it's going to take a little bit longer time. But if you're making a large investment, presumably it's on an important piece of property to the community of Newman. But yeah, there's no way in which attorney's fees, receivership fees, city fines, city capital expenditures, there's no way the city would not get repaid. It's just a question of how long it would take. And you get interest too. So if it takes 5 years, you're going to get interest during that time.
Good.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Okay. Move to item C. Adopt resolution number 2010, next to number, and authorizing the city manager to enter into a land purchase and sale agreement to purchase all or a portion of Merced County APN's 05-004-010, 054-004-011, and 054-005-009, and last but not least, 054-006-001, and appropriating the 2010-2011 budget to include funds for said purchase.
Mayor, at this time, our legal counsels for both the seller and the buyer are still working out final details of that agreement, so we're going to go ahead and continue this item with council approval on that one. But we are getting close with them. There's just some language clarification that we're working on. So at this point, we're just going to go ahead and continue it to the 27th of July, and hopefully that'll get worked out this week.
Very good. All right. Then that item will be continued to our next meeting. We'll move to item 11, items from District 5 Supervisor Jim DiMartini, who's not here.
Yep.
We've got item 12, items from City Manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason Jim is not here, they have a meeting tonight. It's one of their night meetings. I think the third Tuesday is their night meeting. They are moving forward with the PFF, the Public Facility Fee Program, that transportation component that we have been expressing our objections to due to the heavily weighted projects on the North County, and we don't feel that we are receiving equitable expenditures within our area for the amount of fees that we're paying. So part of that agreement, or part of them moving forward tonight, requires them to go back and try to work with the 9 cities in the county to work together, and then they're going to go back within 12 to 18 months and report something back to the county. So this will be something that we'll continue to talk about here in the next couple of weeks. I did provide you a copy of a letter that was written by the city of Waterford with a very creative way of looking at these things, and he obviously acknowledges Newman because him and I have the city manager or city administrator there is not a city manager. We share very similar concerns and stances, and one of those being, if we have new commercial or industrial within our community, we believe it actually reduces the amount of demand on the transportation network, because now our residents are able to purchase those goods and services here within our community instead of having to travel outside of our community. And we continue to look at that position. We also are trying to make a case of, maybe, we hear a lot of talk about regional cooperation, those types of things, and, sales tax is a big one, and, we've had our share of losses due to our car dealerships and as well as our card lock facilities, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So, is there room for sharing per capita sales tax as well? And so we're trying to throw that into the mix as well. So a lot of things that are going on with there. Part of the issue is even the 9 cities don't agree right now. So until we can agree as cities, it's going to make it difficult to then start negotiating with the county, because we as cities all have to be on board and be saying the same message in order to get the county to back it off. Otherwise, they just pick us off one by one, and that prevents its challenges. So anyways, there's more information that'll come back, and I'll have to talk to you more about that in the future. So we did have our meeting with the Board of Equalization up in Sacramento, and that was with Ms. Barbara Alby's office. It was attended by the mayor, our finance director Lou Humphreys, myself, and Supervisor DeMartini went, as well as representatives of the city of Oakdale. I'll characterize it. It was a successful meeting. It was very informational. I can tell you that the Board of Equalization is taking it serious. They're really looking into this particular situation. There are unique circumstances that govern the facility that is located here in Newman, because it's not just a card lock facility, as most of you know. You see prices out there. It is open to the public. Part of our concern was the operator is incentivized to book everything as a card lock, because they get between 45 and 65% of that money back to them as a private company for the sales tax. So it's in their best interest to report everything as a card lock sale as opposed to a walk-up or a retail sale. And that was a lot of the concern that we were trying to share with the upper echelon, and we really had directors and assistant directors, deputy directors in this meeting, so we were at high level personnel when we were talking to them about it. They're concerned about it as well, and so they're investigating it. And it's not a matter that's going to be resolved anytime real soon, but they've requested some information to us. We're providing it to them. We've provided them pictures and a few other things, so we'll continue to work with them and see what we can do. I would anticipate we will get a portion of the money that is currently being lost to the city of Modesto. What that'll be, I can't tell you, and it won't be 100% back, just because state law is not being interpreted to our favor. And now this interpretation is over 2 decades old, and when I asked them, can we get a new interpretation, since, things have changed in the last 2 decades with e-commerce and just the way business goes about these days, if we could get a new legal interpretation, and they said, we can't really comment on that right now. So we'll continue to put pressure on them. Our public records request that we served on the city of Modesto is now ready for us, so we'll go and pick that up. I'm not sure how much of that's going to be beneficial with respect to the state law, because again, I don't think we're on the right side of state law as it's interpreted right now. But we'll continue to press forward and hopefully get what our residents are entitled to in terms of sales tax, point of sales revenues back to our community. So, does anybody have any questions on that item?
Questions, State Manager?
Okay, thank you. As you see, the plaza was being, the ground was broken. I'm going to go ahead and let our Public Works Director speak on that. So those are pretty much the big items that I had for you tonight. We do have another meeting scheduled for a week from today, which will be the 27th. At that time, we'll have the public hearing that was continued over from the last meeting that we weren't able to get a quorum on, and that'll be for the landscape and lighting district and the vote there. We got a very good turnout so far in terms of the number of votes that have been returned to us. They're sitting in a box sealed, and people still have an opportunity to return their ballots because we didn't close the public hearing. So I know this is being taped right now, so if there's anybody out there who still has their ballot and would like to still submit that, it is still open till next Tuesday, 1 week, and they can do that, as well as address the council at the public hearing next week. So with that, I'll turn it over to the rest of my staff. And our chief is not here tonight. He's actually moving into town.
Great. Okay, any questions of the city manager? Hey, staff, who wants to jump up first? Garner?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick update on the Plaza project. As the city manager stated, we have broken ground. They've been doing some grading and excavating out there. We did find 2 55-gallon drums with some partially sludge in them. So we've removed those from the site. We have them spread out on a tarp right now until we get that analyzed. We have to determine what's in there before we can determine what our next step is as far as that goes. Fortunately, it was isolated to a small little spot. It doesn't appear from visual observation that it's penetrated the ground at all, but we won't know until we get our analytical results back. And those are due back Thursday afternoon, maybe Friday morning. We'll have an idea. Then we're going to meet with the county Department of Environmental Resources. They'll help us determine what our next plan of action will be. It's just a small section right up by the southeast corner of Highway 33 in Fresno, where I guess there used to be an old hotel prior to the Texaco station being there, and it appears it might be from back then. Otherwise, they've got it all excavated down to get the material out so they can start bringing clean fill material in where the yard's going to go, and then they'll start the underground probably next week. Or Stemba soil borings, we met with the Corps of Engineers out here on Monday. So they came through and they marked the locations for the borings. We're on hold right now until we get the signed contracts in place. And they have to do a kit fox survey. So they need 14 days to go out and do their kit fox survey before we can actually go out there and start doing any borings.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What's a kid fox? I have to ask.
It's a dog.
It's a small dog. Yeah. It's a protected species in the fox family. Or the fox and coyotes and dogs are all in the same family, but it's a protected species. They have to go out and do a survey before we can actually go out there and do any borings. Part of the environmental study that was done. So we're probably about 2 to 3 weeks out from actually getting out there and doing the borings. One thing I'd like to note for all the business owners and even the residents in Newman, this Thursday at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a second merchant meeting regarding the Plaza project and the construction that's going on. And anybody's welcome to come and hear a brief presentation on it, and I'll answer any questions that they may have. Council's welcome to come to that meeting as well. I've been meeting with several of the downtown merchants regarding the project out there and have answered some of their questions and concerns regarding the parking, which continues to be the biggest issue. It seems to be going okay so far. We're working with the merchants. When delivery trucks come in, we're moving gates and making room for them. We've increased a little bit of additional parking behind the grill to help out with the restaurant there. And working with the Oddfellows building regarding the parking and trying to keep everybody happy. I'm trying to meet with them as often as I can, walk through the downtown and talk with them. And the contractor seems very eager to please the residents as well and the business owners. So that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Garner, was there, I actually happened to talk to the contractor in our conversation, there was some talk about the fencing that's up there, and he had concerns that he was being told he had to remove the fencing, he was being pressed, I guess, to remove the fencing, and he had a concern over liability issues, and I don't know where the pressure, where the complaints were coming from. I have not heard anything from any of the business owners. So my first question, well, if you remove the fence, who's liable?
Contractor.
Yeah. So if that be the case, then I noticed that they did move the fence back closer to the buildings, but I would certainly hope we're not telling him he needs to get that fence removed when it's not completed.
I hadn't heard that from the contractor or from anybody about relocating the fence or taking it down. The contractor is very concerned about site safety. They're totally responsible, liable for
Right.
any safety regarding the
Right.
site, and it is in the contract that they can put up their own fencing
Right.
to protect and preserve the site. And, you know,
Okay, so
we
he's
wanna-
not being told by anybody from the city that he
No.
has to take that fence down, okay.
Mm.
Because that was kind of the gist of the conversation I was having with him, that he felt like he was being pressured, he had to get the fence removed because people were complaining.
Oh.
And I said, well, I had not heard any complaints, and again, my first question is, who's responsible if somebody gets hurt? He says, I am. I said, well, then leave the fence up,
Right.
unless
And
somebody else wants to assume that responsibility.
it is a big liability and responsibility. They're moving a lot of large equipment in and out and
Exactly.
trucks through there. And so the contractor is looking out for his liability and the city's liability, because we do have some minor culpability with that as well.
Okay.
Therefore, no, we haven't given any direction. I prefer the fence, personally, I prefer the fence stay up
Okay.
during most of the construction of the site. Once most of the large equipment gets removed and there's just some minor cleanup going on, then the fence will come down.
Oh, yeah,
But at this point,
absolutely.
no, it's staying up as far as
Because
I
I
know.
know they're still working and they're coming in and out of those buildings on the ground level, and they're moving stuff in and out.
Right.
And so,
We're working with the
Mayor.
delivery trucks and the
I
garbage.
think you're talking about two different projects.
I'm talking
You're-
about Oddfellows.
He's talking
Oddfellows.
about the plaza.
I'm sorry, you mentioned the Oddfellows building,
Oh.
and I picked up on that.
I'm sorry. I was thinking plaza.
My apology. You mentioned the Oddfellows building, the project was moving
Okay,
along,
okay.
and then I zeroed in, and that's when I asked
You're talking
you
about the fencing on the
Yeah, on the
sidewalk portion or on the
sidewalk.
Oddfellows?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Now, I've been working with Larry Viveros on that. Um, There is some concern regarding safety with the citizens walking up and down that sidewalk. I've spoken with Larry about that. But in addition to that, we do have some ownership on the sidewalk, allowing citizens to have access when necessary. So Larry and I have worked out a deal where areas he doesn't need the fencing, he's moved it and relocated it, and during non-construction times, he's moved it. So we can have our citizens to have access and our business people up and down and through the site. So Larry and I are working on talking almost a weekly basis regarding the fencing over there, and he's been very helpful on that.
Okay, yeah, and he's seen it away, but and my point was because I don't see people walking up and down that sidewalk myself, and I don't know why anybody would want to walk up and down a construction zone anyway.
Mhm.
But for his protection and protection of the city, if he needs to have that fence up, then I think I don't know that we need to be pressuring him to tell him to take it down if it's not safe to do so.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
my conversations with Larry, if he didn't need it, then there's not a sense to keep it up there. For quite some time, there was no need for the fence up, especially particularly along Main Street. But then they were just in today, I believe it was, doing some roofing on the overhang,
Right.
and he asked about that, and I said, by all means, you can coordinate that off,
Right.
coordinate it off while you're doing this construction in there. But on Main Street, you do get quite a bit of foot traffic up and down through
Yeah.
Main Street, and they really didn't have a proper detour up. If you're going to really close the sidewalk, you need to have a detour up actually to detour them across the sidewalk so they know how to get out and around through the city. But Larry's working with us. They move the fence out during the day while they're doing construction and get access to their equipment and their vehicles, and then they move it just to give us enough room to allow pedestrian traffic in through there in the evenings and on weekends.
And I agree. I just, when you mentioned, proper signage for detour, I don't think there's been anything up there since project started.
We had
So
put
I
our
would
own
think-
signs up
yeah.
initially.
So I would think, why at this late stage are we going to start hammering somebody about technical things?
Mayor, just to let you know, I accept responsibility for that. I was the one that kind of gave our public works director direction on this. That sidewalk's been blocked for a number of months. We do get a lot of complaints about it. It has been blocked all the way off to the curb. You really can't get around that area, and it's really been an obstruction. I mean, they've been working on the project for a year now. So we asked him, hey, you need to at least provide some access on there. You'll notice there's a lot of cars in that particular area. And so he needs to take a little bit more responsibility in terms of allowing the public to traverse that area over there. They're trying to get people back in. I understand that. They're trying to protect their own interest. But on the other side, we have public safety that we're trying to work with. So I think that's what the public works director is telling you is he's trying to get the contractor. What they do is they just bring it all the way out to the curb and they just block off the whole area, and you can't even traverse it. So you got people walking in the street and in the curbs, not on the sidewalks. They need to move those back when they're not working there. When they're working there and around doorways, yes, it's okay to open that up a little bit. But so that was under my direction that they did that.
Yeah, I understand, Michael, but that's been a major reconstruction going on there, and I know that he's had a few roadblocks along the way that he's been trying to get over, and I go by that building almost every day, and have commented to him each time I've seen it, that the progress that I've seen, I think, has just been tremendous. And I would hope that we don't put him in a situation, and again, first thing I asked him is, if that fence is removed, who's responsible?
And part of it is also is, you know, those are public sidewalks, so we're
understand.
responsible. So
I
I think what Garner's telling you is he's working as best he can with Larry to allow him to continue to use that fencing. We didn't tell him he had to take it all the way down, but he does when he's not using those particular areas. He needs to move that fence back and open up those areas. If he is having people come out of doorways or he's working on an overhang, he's allowed to push those fences back and open up an area that creates a safety zone for him, and then he protects, you know, the public from when they're going around that area. If they're not, then it needs to be kind of back towards the building so we can traverse those sidewalks freely and commerce. You know, we get a lot. You're trying to find the right balance, because we do have business owners who are talking to us about how long that fence is going to be up there. You know, it's been up there a long time, versus the balance of the property owner and the contractor who's trying to get it done. So that's all we're trying to do, is balance those out. And I understand, yeah, it takes some staff time or his time to move those fences up and out, but you know, that's something he's going to have to do, I think, in order to help the public can continue to traverse that, but yet open up his area as well when he needs it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Anything else?
not for me. Any questions for me?
Any questions, Garner? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Garner. Lou.
Mayor and City Council, I'm excited to be here tonight. First time. Just want to keep you appraised. Michael had mentioned about our meeting that we had last week. Since that time, I've received 2 phone calls from them. They have an individual who's been assigned as the special auditor for our case. The good thing to know is that they are actively investigating this. I did have some questions for her. My concern was, well, suppose they decide in our favor, what happens after that? She says that on their side, they're going to make the corrections, and they will continue to audit it for a period of time to make sure that it's continuing to be happening correctly. They'll also be instructing the company on how they're supposed to be reporting future sales. Also, after that period of time, we are supposed to monitor it. If it looks like everything's going fine, we're good to go. If issues start to happen up, we just need to contact them again. Since the case has already been reviewed, all they're going to look for is any changes that have happened. Maybe they stopped doing regular sales and are only doing card lock. But other than that, the decisions will be really quick after that point. On another note, we mentioned about a month ago when we did our budget workshop that we're reviewing our current accounting system and looking for its opportunities for change and growth. Our current system it's old. A lot of the systems that are out there nowadays have a little bit better features in them and integrate with other programs and other organizations better. Our current system, I think, was implemented in the early 90s here. The software was written, I believe, starting back in the early 70s. The interface on it hasn't been updated much since then. In talking with our IT individual, Cullen, he's mentioned that they haven't been very dedicated to upgrading and improving their package. Our concern is that we eventually will get to a point where we might be stuck with an outdated system. In some cases, one of the county packages that we're looking at, they were born out of an event that happened in Portland, Oregon, where a particular city was unable to bill their utilities for a 3-month period because their accounting software that they had became unsupported. So they had to hire an outside programmer to come in and begin programming and developed a package for them to be able to do this. I would hate for our city to ever get into that kind of position. It's important for us that we stay up with the times. One of the packages that we're looking at, and I'll come back at a future time to kind of present more information on them, is Springbrook software. They've dealt with many cities who have converted from our current accounting system over to theirs. And one of the good things to know is if they've done that before, they know all the pitfalls and events that can happen and are able to take care of them. But if there's anything else any other questions I can answer for you at this time, I'd be glad to.
Questions, Lou? All right.
All right.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Good evening again. Just wanted to give a brief update on our housing activities. We do have one NSP house available out to those in TV land, if anybody's interested. Also, just a reminder that we do have first-time home buyer funding available. Just want to get that out there, let people know that there's money available to eligible folks, and come on by and I'll give you all the statistics on that. There are some flyers at City Hall about the NSP property we have available, and also for a the county consortium has decided to offer like a finder's fee for local realtors who may have potential buyers for NSP houses, and we have flyers at City Hall for that as well, if anybody's interested. Also wanted to notify the council that our housing element was accepted by HCD at the last minute, of course, in true California style. So we will be coming back to council to get a formal approval. We had gone already back in October to the council to get approval, and we submitted it to HCD, but then they had more comments and we had to amend it again. So just to make everything nice and tidy, we'll come back and just get one more formal approval on that document. Garner and I met with AECOM last week regarding phase 2 of the PQRST project and street reconstruction project, which are both CDBG funded, and AECOM is starting the review of necessary improvements along those S&T streets, and be getting back to us shortly, and we can start developing the project scope for this fiscal year. Just wanted to give you an update on that. Any questions?
Any questions, Stephanie? Thank you, staff.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Corporal Borden, you got a report for us?
Sure, it's stopping by the same
You don't want to take the mic and get your TV time in? Okay. Items from council members. Nick?
No, nothing tonight.
Bob?
Just a comment, as we all know, the face of Newman is changing, so I'd recommend to all those sidewalk supervisors out there to get around and look at the city, because there's a lot of exciting things going on, thanks to all the people that are involved. But, you know, I've never seen so many things going on in a small city. It's like Newman right now, and it's beautiful to see, even in these difficult financial conditions. You know, it blows my mind. In fact, I have to go out every night and take a look because it's changing so fast. I mean, so get out there and take a look and see how your city is changing for the better. Thank you.
Roberta?
I don't have anything.
And how's Bill doing?
Better,
Good.
surprisingly better. He actually put weight on his right foot yesterday afternoon.
Good. Good to hear that. Just a couple items. One, I got a letter from Monica Ramos, who's the program director for SEPA, and Chief Richardson and I attended their senior information day on the 25th of June. Pretty well attended. I don't know, 60, 70, 80 people were there. Chief did a really good job addressing the seniors there and answering a lot of questions for them, and they provided us with a great lunch, and it was well attended. So. And I provided Michael with their application to reserve a date for next year, so we did receive a letter thanking the chief for that. And also, I think in your packets, there's a letter from a couple residents, and the city manager let me know that I think the police department's already trying to address these complaints of loud music. I don't know if Corporal Borden, if you're aware of it or not, but so that's being taken care of by the lieutenant, I think. And one other thing is August 25th, where the city is going to host Congressman Cardoza and the new, new colonel for the Corps of Engineers. The meeting here at the council chambers. It's kind of been in the works for a while, and I've talked with Cardoza's office a couple of times, and the new colonel who's in charge of the Corps is anxious to come out and look at the project and get a lot of information. So. If anybody in one of the council is available or want to come and attend that meeting, it hopefully will be pretty enlightening. And I got an email today from David Jones. Congressman was instrumental in securing about $800,000 in funding for us for the Creek project. So that was huge. So anyway, we'll be meeting with him on the 25th here.
What time?
At 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, he's pretty busy, I was told, and we have him from 9 to about 10:30 in the morning. So we need to maximize our time with him. One other thing, and this is probably more for Garner. I have concern over today as well. When I came into town about 1 o'clock, the watering. We're watering Sherman Park along Sherman Parkway. All the sprinklers are running. I think we're trying to conserve.
What happening is we have a lot of vandalism going on, so the guys are out during the time looking for sprinkler heads.
Yeah.
We saw someone, as the sprinklers were working this morning, jumping up and down their sprinkler
Yeah,
heads.
I saw that yesterday when I came into town. That's why I didn't say anything earlier.
Talk to the guys.
Yeah, because they were checking sprinklers in the park. 'Cause I saw the dry spots, but then the sprinklers were running again today, and then again along Sherman Parkway. And I had mentioned it to the city manager. I think when we're trying to tell our residents to conserve water, we probably shouldn't have our sprinklers running during the middle of the day. Just a note. So
Let them know. Thank you.
appreciate it. And the last thing I have, and this is more of a consensus of the council to get an idea of what your thoughts are. I've talked with the city attorney as well as the city manager. As you know, the mayor's term is a 2-year term. I'm not real sure when that came into play. The mayor used to be appointed amongst the council, and then quite a few years ago, it was decided to go to an elective position, and it's a 2-year position. And I'd like to get consensus from the council if we want to put it on the ballot, and it wouldn't take effect till 2013 to make the mayor's position a 4-year seat as well as a council member's 4-year. And I don't understand. I tried to find out and asked Tom if he knew, and as well as Michael, if he knew what the rationale was why the mayor's seat was a 2-year seat. So I don't know what the consensus of the council is, if we'd like to get it on the ballot to make it a 4-year term, and it wouldn't take effect till 2013. But if we're gonna do that, we need to move on, because it has to be on the agenda for our next meeting in order for us to get it on the ballot for August. Oh, before August 10th, I think it is. And I'm just thinking, the mayor's seat, I don't know why it's only a 2-year, and it probably should be a 4-year. And I don't know if you want to weigh in, what any knowledge you.
It's really just at the pleasure of the council and what the voters direct them to do, because whatever you do has to be approved by the voters.
Right.
So.
Right. I know what council consensus is. If you think it should be 4-year, then it'd have to be agendized at our next meeting to get it on the ballot. Again, it would not take place until 2013 in that election year.
I don't know, I'd like to give it some thought first, because there must be some rationale. A lot of towns have the 2 years, and I'd like to,
Yeah, our city and Waterford and Houston are only 3 cities in Stanislaus County. They have 2-year. Again, I don't know what rationale. Nobody seems to know, and other than when councils made those decisions, when they went from appointed to elected, it just went to a 2-year term, where the mayor changes seats every 2 years, or can potentially change every 2 years. And I can tell you, in the 2 years I've sat as mayor, you spend the first year or so really getting your feet wet and going to a lot of meetings and representing the city. I would like us put it on the ballot and put it to the voters and see if they want it to be a 2-year or a 4-year. And keep in mind, it doesn't take effect until, if it's passed, until 2013.
It seems illogical to me that your term is 2 years and ours is 4. That doesn't make sense to me.
I've always wondered the same thing. And I don't know why. I'd like to know why.
I would too,
Why did it happen in the beginning? Or why did it the first
I don't
place?
know, and I asked Michael the same thing as well as the city attorney, and I couldn't really get an answer one way or the other, why it's
So
just,
most cities in Stanislaus County are 4?
except for us, Waterford and Houston
And Patterson.
and Patterson. Patterson's putting on the ballot this year. Yeah, theirs going on the ballot. Tom has drawn up the papers, and they're putting theirs on the ballot this year.
The mayor, and just I haven't been able to research it, but I think the common sense approach would be every 2 years there was a new council, and they probably at that point appointed, correct, before it
They
went
did.
to it. So maybe that 2 years stuck because every 2 years there was an appointment
Right.
when there was a new council. Maybe that's how it stuck with a 2-year term when it became an elected position. I have to assume that something like that probably occurred.
How far back does it go, Michael? I mean, I know that it's been 2 years.
It looks like about 1977 when this was changed over
Yeah.
to an elected position. So. And the mayor is correct. Because there's an election for the mayor position this year, it would be a 2-year, depending on the results of the ballot measure that the citizens would vote on. If it was an affirmative for a 4-year term in 2012, when the next election cycle came up, that pool of candidates would be seeking a 4-year mayoral term as opposed to a 2-year. And after the results of the election are certified, we would have to go back and then amend our ordinances to be consistent with the results. If it stayed at 2 years, then we wouldn't have to do anything. If it was changed,
Yeah.
there would be some minor ordinance stuff that would need to occur, but that's not a big deal. That could be done, relatively easy with respect to changing the term limit for the mayor position. So the reason why I think the mayor is asking you today for your direction is, I believe it's August 11th, and between August 9th and 11th is the last day to submit items for the ballot, to have on the ballot. So he's trying to get something agendized for the 27th so that you can make an informed decision at that one. He's not asking, I don't think
Right,
he's
no.
asking you to make the decision today. What I think he's asking you is, can you get your consensus so that we can agendize it for the 27th, and then as a council you can have the facts delivered to you, and then you can make the decision of whether or not to put this on the ballot or not.
I can go with
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
that. That's fine, but
Yeah.
I just like to research it.
Sure,
Yeah.
and we'll do that. So
Yeah, and part of this discussion came up, has been probably the last 3 or 4 of our mayor's meetings. We've had conversation, and everybody I talked to, most cities have gone to 4-year, and a couple cities are looking at going from 2-year to 4-year, including Patterson. So just in some of the discussions that we had, even in those cities, nobody could understand the rationale why it was a 2-year term. And so I simply said, well, I was going to ask this council to consider it. Even though I'm running again for electricity, it would not affect me this year.
And bottom line, the citizens are gonna decide. anyways.
Bottom line, citizens decide. That's right.
So do we have a consensus
Yes.
then to at least agendize the item at this
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll agendize the item. We'll have the city attorney and the city clerk will put together some information.
Right.
Then you'll consider it and make sure we have all of the appropriate resolutions and documents completed and filled out so that we, depending on the outcome of the meeting on the 27th, then we can submit all that information to the clerk and the elections office and make sure that does get on the ballot and that the citizens decide if we move forward next week. So,
Great. Okay. Thank you. And that's all I have for this evening. And with that, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Let's go home. Good night.